Mernptah's tomb is marked KV8 at the Valley of the Kings on the Nile's west bank, opposite of today's Luxor, ancient Thebes. When his mummy was not found in his tomb by 19th century archaeologists, they concluded that his body had drowned and lost forever in the water walls of the Red Sea while pursuing the fleeing Israelites according to the Old Testament's Exodus. But the theory had been refuted when the mummy of Mernptah was discovered by Victor Loret in 1898 in the Valley of the Kings. The study of both the Quranic and biblical narrations is specifically interesting here, mainly because the two narrations share a lot in common. There are certainly divergences, but the biblical narration has a considerable historical value. It does help to identify the Pharaoh, or rather, the two pharaohs in question. This hypothesis, which starts with the Bible, is complemented by the information contained in the Quran. Modern data are added to these two scriptural sources. Bucaille singles out one major discrepancy in the narration of both texts regarding the fate of the Pharaoh's body. The writer of Exodus tells us that after the Israelites crossed the sea without wetting their feet, the Egyptians pursued and went in after them to the midst of the sea, even all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. Exodus 23. And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the host of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remained not so much as one of them. But the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. Exodus 28 through 29. So the Israelites escaped, and the Pharaoh perished. But his body was rescued and found, a very important detail not mentioned in the biblical narration. We read in the Quran, chapter 10, verses 90 to 92. Thus we caused the children of Israel to pass in safety through the divided sea. Then Pharaoh and his host followed them, in ruthless injustice and aggression, until, when the drowning waters overwhelmed him, he said, I believe that there is no God but the one in whom the children of Israel have believed. And I am now of those who are Muslims, in willing submission to God alone. It was said, Now you believe, while before you have truly disobeyed your Lord, and you were ever of those who sowed corruption? Rather today we shall deliver you, preserving you in your body only, so that you will become a sign for those who come after you, that God is exalted in his power, for indeed many of the people are heedless of our signs. Moses, after slaying an Egyptian, fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian. Exodus 15. Bucaille points out an important detail mentioned in Exodus 23. And it came to pass in process of time that the king of Egypt died. Exodus identifies that king being the one who ordered the Hebrews, by forced labor, to build new cities. And they built for Pharaoh cities of Pithom and Ramses. Exodus 11. Bucaille concludes that Exodus, with the returning 80-year-old Moses, could only have taken place during the reign of Ramses' successor. So, one Pharaoh died during Moses' stay at Midian, while the other perished pursuing the fleeing Israelites. Not a single Pharaoh for Moses then, but two: Ramses II, Pharaoh of the oppression, and Mernptah, Pharaoh of the Exodus. Having published the results of his examination of the mummies of both pharaohs, freely conducted in the Cairo Museum during 1974 and 1975, Dr. Bucaille had headed on the afternoon of February the 17th, 1976, to the French National Academy of Medicine to present a paper entitled Application of Medical Methods to the Examination of Pharaonic Mummies, in which he introduced the conclusions reached by his Egyptian Franco team. In his book of 1987, Mummies of the Pharaohs, Modern Medical Investigations, Bucaille dissects in detail these conclusions. He says, "It was apparent to my colleague Michel Durgon and me that mummification had been carried out with perfect success on the body. Visual examination of it was not enough. However, what we needed was material proof. This we obtained by microscopic analysis of a tiny fragment of the mummy. It was examined under the microscope by Professors Jacques Mignot and Michel Durgon. They were thus able to show the perfect preservation of the smallest anatomical details visible, the transversal striations of the fibrilla, as we have already seen on other mummies. For it to have retained these microscopic features to this day, the body must have been embalmed. Otherwise, decay and putrefaction would have set in." Bucaille continued, "The lacuna in the right part of the thorax may well have been the result of an injury sustained during the subject's lifetime. The cranial lacuna is of great forensic importance. Its presence may suggest a craniocerebral lesion received during the subject's lifetime, a fracture with a penetrating wound seriously injuring the brain. In all likelihood, this lesion caused a very rapid death." After grueling research, the final conclusion was reached in Bucaille's words. This would have brought on death very quickly, and the body had been submerged before or after the pharaoh was killed. Whatever the case, he does not appear to have stayed in the water for long. "I have searched for a contradiction of any kind between our medical observations and the narrations of the Exodus contained in the book of Exodus in the Bible and the Quran. But I can find no argument to oppose the theory I hereby maintain. Given the present state of our knowledge, the only valid hypothesis that can be advanced is that Merenptah, Ramses II's successor, met a tragic end during the Exodus." This has been formally proved by medical examination and fits perfectly with the passage in the Quran on the rapid retrieval of the body. "Rather today we shall deliver you, preserving you in your body only, so that you will become a sign for those who come after you, that God is exalted in his power, for indeed many of the people are heedless of our signs." Here is a material presence of the mummified body of the man who knew Moses, resisted his pleas, pursued him as he took flight, and lost his life in the process. His earthly remains were saved by the will of God from destruction to become a sign to posterity, as it is written in the Quran. Bucaille wraps up his argument with a piece of advice for those who seek, in modern data, a proof of the veracity of the Holy Scriptures. He asserts, "They will find a magnificent illustration of the verses of the Quran when they see the retrieved body of the Exodus Pharaoh by simply visiting the Royal Mummy's Room in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo."